Season 1 of House of Cards may be over, but we're just getting started. This is House of Cards Live. And now, here are the two guys who hope to not pull a Pete Russo at any point during this radio broadcast. I'm Rob Cesternino, and here is my co-host for House of Cards Live. It's Mr. Zach Brooks. Zach, how are you?
Hey, Rob. How's it going?
Doing very good. It's a pleasure to be here with you on House of Cards Live, our new House of Cards podcast on postshowrecaps.com.
You know, Rob, I'm kind of feeling like Zoe Barnes at the end of episode 2, right when she goes on that first national interview. She's sitting there, she's ready to give the information.
Yeah, you're ready. You're ready. Good.
Ready.
Well, this is going to be a lot of fun. Okay, so House of Cards, of course, came on Netflix about a year ago. Many people watched it at different points. I didn't watch it all straight through when it first came on last year. I watched it over the course of the year, but we're very excited for season 2, and we're going to podcast about it. My co-host, Zach, has even gone back and done a rewatch of season 1 to get pumped up for the Valentine's Day release of season 2. Zach, how are you feeling after a doubling down of House of Cards?
I feel like I mastered House of Cards for the last 6 days. 3 episodes a day, every night. Lots of House of Cards, me and Spacey.
Awesome. Well, that's fantastic news. Good. We're going to get a lot of insight. And what we're going to do here on this podcast is we have here on these cards 20 questions about House of Cards Season 1 and Season 2 that we're going to address here in this podcast. So it's going to be a lot of fun. And then the real fun starts this Friday when House of Cards Live goes live for real, because Zach and I every day for 13 days starting on February 14th will podcast about one episode of the new season of House of Cards. We will watch an episode a day. We won't skip ahead. We won't get into any spoilers. And even if you can't keep up at that schedule, the idea behind this is whenever you're ready for it, it's there. So then you can go ahead and watch. If you watch 2 months from now, you watch one episode a week, then these podcasts are there. They exist for you. And at any time, just like on Netflix, if you want to binge watch all the podcasts, they'll be there for you. So we're going to do one a day. Zach, we're making history.
Yeah, I think we're the first podcasters to ever do this.
I don't know about that, but we are definitely ambitious to go ahead. And what we're hoping for is that you guys come along for the ride with us. If you can commit to watching one House of Cards a night and then come in and join us live. And the great part about that is we'll be able to take your questions and talk with you guys live and take your tweets and all sorts of stuff like that and hear what you're saying in the chat room about House of Cards and House of Cards Live. So it's going to be a very fun ride here, and should be a great way to spend the next 13 days starting on Valentine's Day. Very romantic.
Yeah, definitely. Nobody I'd rather spend my Valentine's Day with than you and Frank Underwood.
Good, good. All right. So, of course, if you want to subscribe to the iTunes feed of Post Show Recaps, of course, all these shows that we do are live on YouTube, on our YouTube channel, Post Show Recaps. You could also get the iTunes feed of this. This should be up in the iTunes store by Friday, and on Friday I will give you out that link to subscribe to the iTunes feed of House of Cards Live here on Post Show Recaps. All right, so let's start off and talk about the House of Cards as a Netflix show. And Zach, I know that you and I have different feelings about this. Do you feel like House of Cards would be even better if it was not on Netflix?
I think it'd be better on Netflix because you can watch the show as much as you want. You can binge watch, you can rewatch it like I did in the last week. And there's so many details, so many characters in this show. It's a lot better if it's not spread out over a number of weeks, if you just kind of go through them and plow through them right in a row.
See, but I feel like the show would have more significance if it was on weekly, where everybody could sort of watch an episode, sort of digest what happens. And I feel like that there were big moments in this show that sort of just got sort of, you couldn't talk about it, like, oh, did you see it yet? Oh, okay. And then people didn't talk about it, and the social media was all screwy. So I kind of feel like, I like the idea that they'd all be released to Netflix, but I do feel like the show would have more impact as a social phenomenon if they did, okay, here's 2 episodes a week or even something like that.
Yeah, I could definitely see that because I didn't watch it originally for a couple months, and I had all my friends who had seen it, and they're like, how could you not watch House of Cards? It's so great, it's so great. And then I finally went and watched it, and I agreed with them. but there was no schedule to watch it on. But it is great to just have them all there. You can just watch them whenever you want. And I guess if they were released 2 a week, that would be okay. But it's just nice to have them all there, and if you're a huge fan, you can watch them all on Valentine's Day night.
Yeah, or if you're somebody who is does not have a date, you could just go through. That's really a sign that things are not going well for you if you watched all 13 episodes of House of Cards on Valentine's Day, the night it came out.
Or if you're podcasting about it on Valentine's Day.
Fair enough. That's fair. That's a fair rebuttal. But I feel like that what we're doing is we're sort of at least giving some structure to House of Cards, where we're trying to help give people a schedule to watch it on. We're sort of binge watching it, but we're binge watching it over 2 weeks. So we're sort of having the best of both worlds. We're having our cake, we're having our ribs and eating them too.
Yep.
Yeah.
Ribs and some coleslaw with it.
Fair enough. All right, let's move on to question number 2. And question number 2 is, do you root for Frank Underwood? Now, Frank Underwood is a pretty bad guy. He has some redeeming qualities, but he's sort of like in the Walter White, a little bit of an anti-hero. We watched him kill. Spoiler alert: we watched him kill somebody in season 1. So, are we rooting for Frank Underwood, or do we want to see him get his comeuppance?
I am totally rooting for Frank Underwood, especially rewatching it the second time. You can really see how his plan comes together. Like starting episode 3 or 4, you can see he's starting to get his pieces in a row to set up Rousseau to fall so he can eventually take over that vice president spot. I think he's a great character. I think he's super smart. There's definitely a lot of humor that I didn't catch the first time through, but the second time through, you watch it, and he's actually has some pretty funny lines. And he's a lot more self-aware than Walter White ever was. He knows who he is, and he knows what kind of character he is.
Yes, he is much more of a master than any of these other characters that we might talk about, like a Tony Soprano or a Don Draper or Walter White, in that Frank Underwood knows exactly who he is and knows exactly what he's capable of much better than any of these other characters.
Yeah, and he's incredibly confident, and that's how he got as far as he did. And he just really believes that he is the smartest, most strategic person in the government.
Yeah. So we just are hoping for Frank Underwood to just do horrible things all through season 2?
Oh, I hope he gets more and more horrible. I want to just see how dark this can get.
Well, then at the end of the day, do we want to see Frank Underwood taken down at the end of the series? Do we want to see sort of like well, again, I can't say other endings without spoiling other shows, but what are we hoping for at the end of the run of House of Cards? Do we want to see Frank Underwood out of office, or do we want to see him, triumph and ride off into the sunset?
This is one of those situations where I wish the producers of the show had it set how long the show was going to go. Because it'd be really nice if we had the arc where Frank rises, he's vice president, maybe he becomes president someday, he falls, and then he rises back to power again to end the series.
Oh, wow. That would be like rising from the ashes.
Yeah.
Frank Underwood. So we'll see what happens. House of Cards has already been renewed for season 3. So we were still waiting to hear if House of Cards Live gets picked up for season 3.
Let's hope that we do a good enough job that it does.
We hope so. We hope so. All right, so question number 3, and this sort of ties into this. How much of the whole master plan that Frank Underwood claimed to have been his master stroke throughout season 1 did you buy? And what I mean by that is how much of from the start of the event in the first episode, that arc that goes all the way through the 13th episode, where Frank is now in a position to become the vice president, how much of this was premeditated and how much of this was Frank just adapting to things on the fly?
I think parts of it definitely were him adapting. I think, obviously he killed Rousseau earlier than he intended to. I don't know if he ever actually intended to kill Rousseau, but saw that as the only way to get out of that situation.
But I feel like the show made it seem like that this was all everything that happened with Rousseau was his plan. That his whole thing was then to get the vice president to go and to make Rousseau have a fall from grace, and then they seem to imply that Frank had this all in his master plan.
Yeah, I think that he had it in his plan to have Rousseau fall. I just don't know if the plan was to kill Rousseau, because I think that there's a point where he says to his chief of staff, Doug Stamper, he says, look, we need to get wheels moving a little bit quicker, and that's when he goes and gets Rousseau drunk at that party before the interview,
Yeah.
or has the prostitute do it. But there's definitely a parallel I noticed between the Rousseau killing and in the very first scene of the show when Francis kills the dog. And I think he saw Rousseau like he saw this injured dog, and was not only killing him to get ahead, but was also putting him out of his misery.
That's very interesting.
Yeah,
So that
I noticed that last night. That was one of those rewatch things.
Yeah. All right, so that would almost seem like that you and the show both felt like that this was sort of premeditated.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely from a story perspective, it's told like that. They know he's going to kill him, so they do the foreshadowing in the beginning of the show. But I think the idea of having Rousseau fall from grace was definitely the plan all along.
Okay.
Well,
So
at least I guess once he found Rousseau as this vulnerable guy who had gotten, Rousseau got the DUI, and this was somebody he could control. I think that was when he spun up the story.
Pete Russo seems like a fun guy, though, I gotta say.
He likes to drink.
Yeah, he likes to drink. He's got hookers. He loves Jeopardy. I feel like him and I have so much in common.
Yeah, all three of those.
Yes, those are the big three. All right, so of course we talked about how Frank killed Russo in the car. Now, that scene and everything about that, how much of that were you buying that Frank would then go, even if he decided, okay, we have to get rid of Russo, that he would go and do it himself, and the fact that he just sort of just walked away from that scene of the crime pretty, like, did not really, you wonder if a CSI team came in, would they be able to maybe get some more information about what happened?
That was kind of what I thought, and you would think that would happen as well, because you have a congressperson who just died. You would think they would have every cop in the city investigating this, even if it clearly looks like a suicide. And Frank definitely touches a lot of parts of the car. People probably saw him driving the car. I mean, there's just so many kind of holes there in terms of ways he could get caught. I do wonder if that's going to end up being uncovered by Zoe and the rest of the reporters who are investigating Frank.
Yeah, and on top of everything, that Russo is in the passenger seat. So you would think that any, you don't have to be Sherlock Holmes to come through and say, wait a second, why did he get in the passenger seat to start the car to kill himself? Like, that doesn't make a lot of sense. Why would you do that?
Yeah, that I thought was definitely weird. And if I was an investigator, and maybe I should be an investigator in DC, I would have thought that was kind of fishy.
Yeah, seems like Frank maybe didn't think that through, but it seemed like there was no repercussion, so he seems like he's okay.
Yeah,
Probably
because I
in the
think
clear.
they implied that like over a month had passed since Rousseau had died, maybe more than that actually, because it was a
All
couple
right.
more episodes.
It's all good. All right, so let's start to talk about the Golden Globe Award-winning actress Robin Wright and her portrayal of Claire Underwood. Now, overall, question number 5 is thumbs up or thumbs down Claire Underwood?
I think thumbs down. I just think she's kind of an annoying character, much in the same way as like Skylar White annoyed me. And I don't know, maybe it's a thing with wives of the main bad guy, anti-heroes in these shows. There were just some weird things that Claire did, and she seemed to want to get in Frank's way, but then wouldn't really get in Frank's way.
And I feel like it's a little bit of a disservice to call her like a Skylar White or a Carmela or other people who were sort of just like the wives of these main characters of the show, because she is actually almost equally as duplicitous and conniving as Frank is, but I felt like at times her story with the nonprofit, I found that to be some of the most boring parts of the show.
Yeah, I like the nonprofit story a little bit more because I also work for a nonprofit in Washington,
Oh.
D.C. So I could, it's not like that nonprofit, and we definitely haven't tried to pass or kill any bills like that.
Yes.
but I could feel a connection there. I don't know. I just thought the whole storyline with the photographer Adam was
Oh
just
yeah, that
really.
too.
I mean, both on the first watch and on the rewatch, I was just kind of bored through all of that.
Yeah, I think that I love all the stuff with Kevin Spacey, but I felt like the stuff that doesn't have him in it, I felt like could be boring at times.
Yeah, I hope that Claire becomes kind of more of an evil in I guess a smarter character this season,
Yeah.
because she has potential, I think, but just I don't need to see her affair in New York City with some photographer.
By the way, I did a terrible job at the opening of this show that I didn't give any of your background in that you are a Washington D.C. insider, Zach.
Yeah, I guess you could say that.
Yes.
I live over on Capitol Hill, so I actually run past the Capitol a lot and think of the opening of House of Cards.
Fantastic. And
Yeah.
uh, do you ever see Frank and Claire Underwood jogging when you do so?
No, they're always way ahead of me. They're much faster.
Okay. Well, good. I hope that you can provide some DC insight as we go along on House of Cards Live.
I will definitely do my best.
Yeah. And it explains why you have all of these political campaign signs behind you.
Yeah, my roommate actually worked on a bunch of campaigns, and he gave me all these signs to use as my backdrop. And then right before we came on, he informed me most of them were for losers. So that's got to be a great sign.
Oh, I think that's perfect for this podcast. Very
Yeah.
good. Very appropriate. Then let's see. Do you want to talk more Claire Underwood? Let's get back to Frank. Let's talk about question number 6. Do we like when Frank Underwood breaks the fourth wall?
I like it. I think it's a really cool way to tell the story. It's a callback to Saved by the Bell, which is nice. And
Is that what they're doing? Is a tip of the cap?
I'm sure it is. I mean, I guess it's kind of a cheap plot trick to like tell us what he's thinking without actually having to show it on screen, but it works. I like it.
I like it too. I think it's good. Sometimes I do feel like it's a little like the flowery language sometimes that Frank Underwood might use to describe something. I mean, sometimes that Frank Underwood, it's almost like he's doing Mad Libs with some of the analogies and similes that he puts out there.
Yeah, and I think his accent kind of comes and goes, and I don't know if there's any significance to that because I feel like there were definitely scenes when his accent was thicker that were more important scenes. So I don't know if that's an actor thing or if that's actually like part of the story.
I don't know. But he'll say things, he'll turn to the camera and be like, oh, watch this. Like, he's about to be angrier than a St. Bernard who stuck his head in a beehive filled with molasses on a, that's a pretty random analogy we're making here, Frank.
I like those analogies. I think they're fun. Again, that's some of the stuff that you watch it and I think it actually ends up being kind of funny.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's it's all good. It's just sometimes it's a little out there. Like, is that an expression? Are we are we making things up, or is that an expression?
Neither of us live in the South, Rob. So
I don't know.
he's a good Southern boy. Might be some of that.
Okay, good. Do you think we'll see an equal amount of breaking the fourth wall in season 2?
I hope so. And I guess we'll see as we get into it. But I hope that he continues to do that to drive the story along and connect with the viewer. I think it works really well.
All right, let's talk about another female lead of this show. Let's talk about Zoe Barnes. And my question number 7 is, did you buy the career arc of Zoe Barnes?
Oh yeah, she's a struggling reporter who starts breaking some huge stories and then moves over to work on the internet because isn't that everybody's dream to work for a blog and website?
Yes, like post-show recaps.
Exactly.
That's what Zoe Barnes was going to get a Gossip Girl podcast in season 2.
Yep, you should bring her on. She's great.
Yeah. I have to say, I really, I had a thing for Zoe Barnes. I was a big fan. I really appreciated her every time that she was on the screen.
Oh yeah, she's great. She reminds me so much of the actress Anna Kendrick. I feel like they're like the exact same person.
Okay, well,
I don't know if you're familiar with her work.
I know Stephanie Kendrick.
Who's Stephanie Kendrick?
Yeah, she's this woman that's married to Kyle Kendrick.
Oh. Oh. Oh, right.
but
Yes, Stephanie Kendrick, of
no, but I
course.
don't know Anna Kendrick. But yeah, Zoe Barnes, she was really, really great. I really enjoyed her for probably the first 2/3 of the season, but then I felt like she sort of got a little lost in the final third of the season.
I really like her story arc. I preferred it when she was at the Washington Herald. I just
Yes,
thought
that
that
was
there
the
was so much
best.
more going on. Because now she just kind of works at this blog, and then her coworkers, you see them in scenes without her. And the girl Janine, I think, who she like was a rival with at the Herald, and now they work together. That I wasn't a huge
Slugline.
fan of her. Yeah, I wasn't a huge fan of Janine, but
Yeah, no, she kind of stunk also.
yeah.
Yeah.
But
Uh,
my coworker is a former Washington Hill reporter, so I definitely can kind of make the connections there.
Yeah, I feel like I loved Zoe anytime that she was involved with Frank Underwood, but I kind of felt like when she was sort of like on her own working on other things, I kind of felt like, especially with this other, I could not care less about her love interest with this other editor guy.
Oh, with the blog, yeah, I think that you could kind of take him and the photographer, send them somewhere to work on a story, and just keep
Yeah,
them off the show.
get that. There, the photographer could take the pictures, he could write the article, and that would be fantastic.
Yeah, maybe it'll all come full circle and they'll all work together.
Yeah. Let's go back to Zoe and Frank Barnes, and I want to know: did you feel that there was any romantic feelings between Frank and Zoe?
No, I think there were some weird daddy issues things going on. Like,
Whoa!
well, the scene when she's on the her phone with her dad,
Yes,
and
that's
then
my favorite scene from the whole show.
is it your favorite scene? Uh, yeah, that was I don't know. There's something weird going on there. Maybe we'll get more
Yeah.
of Zoe's backstory
Now,
this season.
my question during that scene, boy, is Frank Underwood really not just a master of what he does at Capitol Hill, but he seems to also be a phenomenal performer in the bedroom. Also, what a
Yeah,
reaction that from Frank! I have never in all my days seen a reaction like that from a woman.
I think it's probably the tide of the season coming out on Valentine's Day. Maybe we'll get more information about that.
Yes. Oh, Frank, so quickly within like 3 seconds of having her pants off that she can't even control herself on the phone with her dad.
And she's yeah, you would think her mind is on the phone with her dad. I don't know. That was a an odd way to end an episode, I guess.
Yeah, I love that. That was one of my favorite parts of the season. I love
Yeah,
it.
it was great.
Yeah. Do we think that turning to season two, do we think that Frank and Zoe will hook up again in season two?
I hope so. I really hope this doesn't just turn into Zoe is going after Frank and is like building a case against Frank. Because as I root for Frank, then I'm going to have to root against Zoe, and I don't want to do
Yeah.
that. I like them better when they work together.
This could get a little homelandy if we get sort of like a relationship where then she's also working against him and trying to take him out. So we hope that that doesn't happen, right?
I really hope this show stays as far away from Homeland as possible.
Learn the lessons. Were you surprised that Claire Underwood was so cool about Frank and Zoe's relationship?
I get the feeling this has been going on a while. I think Zoe is just kind of the first of many, or not the first of many, but she is the latest of many um, people that Frank has slept with to get to the top.
There you go.
And there's probably something, there's probably a reason why him and Claire are together.
Yeah. No, I thought they really explained it well, the whole, marriage of convenience. I thought that they did a good job of explaining why this marriage works for these two people.
Yeah, she explained it. I think she gave a lot of insight when she was in the hospital room with the former security officer who was dying, and she gave him a hand job.
Yeah, how about that?
That was another one of those odd sexual scenes in this show.
Yeah, well, that was very nice of her.
I don't think he appreciated it as much as you did.
No, I appreciate it. I appreciate that. Okay, so question number 9 is: do you think Pete Russo would have been a good governor for the great state of Pennsylvania?
No, I think he would have been a horrible governor because he is so pliable and easily manipulated.
Yeah, he really is. Like it's like you walk into his office with like an airport bottle of rum, and it's like, hey, Russo, it's party time. All right, forget it. He's ripping his shirt off. screaming out Jeopardy answers. What is what is Patron? Yeah,
Yeah, that was like I know he was drunk but he was still really good at Jeopardy considering
yeah.
how drunk he was.
Imagine how good he would be if he was straight.
No, I think he's probably way better at Jeopardy when he's drunk than when he's sober.
Oh, you think that it's like one of these like sitcom things where he has to like get really wasted and he can win at Jeopardy?
Yeah, I think so. I think that could be the spin-off had he not been killed.
uh, I'll take women of ill repute for 400, Alex. uh, okay, so let's go ahead and let's go to question number 10. And let's talk about this storyline that sort of showed up at the end of the season with Claire Underwood's nonprofit, and we have the claims of the wrongful termination suit from the woman who was pregnant. What do you think? You told me before we started her name is Jillian. Does Jillian have a legit claim here?
I don't think so because I think she even admitted that she would lie and do whatever to win this lawsuit. So if they can show that she was lying, then I think that she's in trouble.
Was
Also, she's nobody is going to come after Frank. Like, you can't come after Frank because he's going to come after you first or come after you harder. So if she tries to do anything, I think Frank will take care of it.
But was Claire wearing a wire when that woman confessed that what she was doing?
Not that I know of.
Oh, okay.
But she confessed so easily. Why
Yeah.
couldn't Claire wear wire?
I know. That's like I feel like that's an old TV cliche where somebody is wearing a wire and they tell the whole plan. It's sort of like the Bond villain thing.
I don't feel like this lawsuit is any threat to Claire or Frank.
Okay.
I think it'll be something that's addressed in the early couple episodes, but I think that they will take care of it pretty quickly.
All right. This is a good question. Question number 11. We want to know, is the Pete Russo drunk interview on the radio, is that the red wedding of House of Cards season 1?
Definitely. I thought the drunk interview, I thought that whole kind of 20 minutes from when he gets to that party to when he gives the interview and he just totally bombs, I was on the edge of my seat every time I've watched that scene. I don't know, I didn't see that coming. I thought it was really well done. And as you start realizing what's going on, you're just like yelling at the TV like, no, 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 don't do this.
Yeah. I guess so. That was good. I kind of feel like when Frank killed Pete, I feel like that's the red wedding of House of Cards season 1. I feel like that's the thing where you're more like, oh my god, I can't believe that happened.
And I guess we will never know because, as this is on Netflix, there was no like everybody tweeting about it right when it happened like there was with the Red Wedding.
There were no reaction videos of people filming their friends on YouTube showing them when Pete Russo was on the phone call on the radio.
You could probably have filmed a reaction video of me 2 nights ago watching that, having the same reaction even though I knew it was going to happen. Like, no, stop, please don't drink.
Yeah. Pete Russo, he's crazy. All right, question number 12. This is also very interesting. This kind of came out of left field on House of Cards in one episode. Is Frank Underwood gay or at least bi-curious? Now, again, not that there's anything wrong with that. We're trying to get to the bottom of this, but take us through there were some unclear events that took place in one of the episodes during Frank's, he goes back to his college because they're going to dedicate the library to him, I guess, and he hangs out with his gang from college, and there's a scene where one of his buddies is sort of trying to seduce him.
I don't know if he was trying to seduce him, but because they were talking about how they're both married now. But his buddy, and I don't remember what his buddy's name was, but he was saying how much Frank meant to him, and they kind of shared a moment when the other two guys had fallen asleep, where they admitted how important the other was to each other. And my roommates and I, as we watched that scene, we talked about it after. We were like, so, was he gay, or was this just his one kind of true, honest relationship he's ever had in his life?
Yeah, but his friend definitely wanted to hook up, though, right?
I don't know, because his friend was like the only part of that was really physical is when his friend was like, my heart is beating so fast, and he kind of pulls his hand onto his heart.
Yeah.
He pulls Frank's hand onto his heart.
Yeah, but I never did that with my friends.
Well, I don't know. Maybe your heart's never been beating that fast.
My heart's never beating that fast. Except when I'm watching House of Cards and Frank is talking to Zoe while she's on the phone with her dad. Then put your hand on my heart.
That was your red wedding scene, apparently.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so maybe we'll get some more answers in season 2. All right.
I thought that episode, not to cut you off, but the end of that episode I thought was really cool because Frank is finally kind of relaxed and a human for that episode, and then at the end of the episode, it kind of flips back and he goes back to Washington D.C. mode. And
Yeah.
I thought it was like you saw the dichotomy of that. I thought it was a really, really cool episode.
Yeah, that was cool. All right, question number 13. Better Frank Underwood subplot. Is it A, the rowing machine, B, video games, or C, his love of ribs?
Oh man, I think it's the rowing machine because every time I saw him on that rowing machine, I was like, we should get a rowing machine for our basement. That looks great. Looks like a great workout.
Yeah. So what was the point of the rowing machine? That's if you get he got a bad report from his doctor, so Claire Underwood said, "Hey, rowing machine for you, buddy."
Yeah, I don't remember how it started because I don't think it had anything to do with his health. I think she was just like, maybe this is a more productive way to get your stress out than playing Call of Duty.
I guess so. Now, did you buy that Frank Underwood is really playing video games?
Oh
I
yeah,
felt like
I thought that was great.
I don't know. I can't see him sitting there with playing Xbox.
Oh, you can't see him like on Xbox Live playing against some 10-year-old kid in California.
Yeah, no, I don't see that. I do like when him and Claire Underwood go and smoke cigarettes.
Yeah, I think that's really cool when they do that, and that's their time to plot together.
Yes. All right. So let's go to question number 14. Zach, our DC insider. Are there any places in DC where they go and shoot this for real?
So they shoot a lot of it in Baltimore and in parts of Maryland, just because I think that's probably way cheaper and easier to film. It definitely looks like DC. The opening has all kinds of great shots of DC, but there are definitely scenes where my roommates and I will sit there and say, "Oh, that's definitely Baltimore." But there is a barbecue place. There's actually 2 barbecue places, like about a mile from my house, that are exactly like the barbecue place where Frank goes in the show, and they have fantastic food.
And you've been there.
I've been to one of them, and I want to go back after watching this show.
How early in the morning do you go?
I wish I was as much of a VIP that I could go as early as Frank.
What, you would eat ribs that early?
Yeah, sure, why not?
Sure, why not? All right, let's turn our attention to season 2, okay?
All right.
So season 2, this is question number 15. We want to know, who do you want to see more of in season 2 that we did not see as much of in season 1?
I think it's got to be Doug Stamper. I think his character is awesome. He's the chief of staff for Frank, and he's just the guy who gets things done. Except killing Rousseau, he didn't do that.
Yeah.
But I'd like to see more of his backstory. I just think he's a really intriguing character.
Right, because he had to have the prostitute live at his house for a couple of weeks. I bet I would have liked to see more of that subplot.
Yeah, and he got her the job, and then got her rehired when she was sexually harassed. I mean, he's a man who can get things done.
I mean, I would love to see that conversation at my house where I come home. It's like, all right, Nicole, I have, this is just for work, but there's a prostitute who needs to come and live with us for a few weeks. It's only for short term. She's gonna stay in the guest room. We're gonna just until she gets back on her feet again. Is this cool? Do you mind about this? That would be a better episode of TV than any House of Cards episode.
I think you could make that web series.
Sure.
Rob has a prostitute.
Or Rob is Frank Underwood's right-hand man.
Yeah.
Season 2. There you go. How about Remy? Do you want to see more about Remy? I liked him. I felt like he didn't have a ton to do.
I didn't really like him until the end of the season. I even rewatching it, I kind of forgot what all happened with him at the end, and like the first 6 or 7 episodes, I'm like, what is this guy? Just comes in and causes trouble and leaves. But I think that he now works for, and I'm blanking on the guy's name, Tusk. I think he works at Sandcorp for Tusk now.
Yeah.
So it'll be, or he doesn't. He did work at Sandcorp. Now he works for Tusk, at the nuclear company.
Yeah. What about Pete's girlfriend, Christina? Or do you think we're gonna see her again in season 2?
I wonder what we'll see out of her. I feel like she didn't really do much except, get mad at Pete, try to get him sober, cry. That's about all she did that season.
I felt like she looked very different on sometimes. I would sometimes would think that she was two different people because I felt like that there was like the business version and then the casual version of her. And I felt like that it was hard for me to tell. I thought she was two different people.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It was kind of weird because she was dating her boss, and it would be like a Sunday morning, and she would be working, and they'd be talking about work. It was a weird relationship.
It was weird. It was a little weird. But she is going to be back in season 2. Can we confirm this?
I don't know if she's back. I think she would be because they're going to try to fill Pete Russo's seat, and it sounds like she's going to be leading that up.
Okay.
But I don't know. I don't think she'll be as big of a character in season 2 as she was in season 1.
Oh, that's damning with faint praise.
Unless she's working with Zoe in the investigation.
Oh no. I don't want to see any investigating from Zoe. I want Zoe to be like helping Frank with his evil plans. I don't want to see her, on Wikipedia and like looking up things on the internet. Like I want to see her helping with make new stuff happen, not investigate the old stuff.
I have a feeling that might be what we're complaining about for the first 4 episodes.
Oh no! Why do you have inside intel as a DC insider?
No, I have no inside intel. I've barely watched the trailer
Did
for the
Zoe
season.
Barnes leak one of the Netflix episodes?
Oh man, I wish she would. If she wants to text me, she is more than welcome. I don't have anything to do on Friday except a podcast.
Yeah. Speaking of texting, one of the things I really liked is I felt like they did a really good job with like anytime anybody was like text messaging or anything like that, like the way that it popped up on the screen, I felt like was really cool. I feel like they did that better than any other show I've ever seen.
I like that. I don't feel like they did it all the time because I feel like there were definitely times when a character would get the text and they'd show the phone screen instead of showing it on the kind of pop up.
Well, I like that. I think they did a good job.
I love Frank Underwood's ringtone. I really want to find that and download it for my phone.
What was his ringtone?
It's like da 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 da. I don't know. I can't really do it that well. I'll try to download it for Friday.
That from Super Mario Brothers?
No, not. It's like more chimey than Super Mario Brothers.
All right, well, let's see if we can get the Frank Underwood ringtone. All right, question number 16. Where do you think this is going in season 2? We had at the end of season 1, Frank Underwood is going to make a run at the vice presidency. As he's literally making a run with Claire Underwood at the end of the episode. Do we think that we're going to see Frank Underwood become vice president in season 2?
Oh yeah, I think he's definitely going to be vice president in season 2. I think the question is he going to try to become president in season 2? Do you see him trying to knock off the big guy, knock off the president?
Well, it does seem like the president is pretty inept at his job. Like, I'm really not sure how this guy got elected because he's such a doofus, the president. Like, he seems to, like, he, like, thinks he's so smart, but really at all turns, Frank and, who's the chief of staff?
Linda?
Yeah, both of them are always just, like, really just, like, doing whatever they want to do around him, and everybody's just manipulating the president.
And Linda's going to have even more free time now that her son is off to college at Stanford. So she's going to be at the office even more now.
Yes. So it feels like it would not be that hard for Frank to really get what he wants. Now, do you think that Frank will wait until the end of his tenure, or do we think that we could see an assassination attempt on the president?
That's kind of what I'm hoping happens. I mean, we've seen him kill once before. Let's see him do it again.
Yeah. Are we borrowing too much from 24 to have the evil vice president plotting the assassination of the president?
I don't know. I mean, speaking of 24, 24 had a great ringtone as well for the CTU office's phones. I don't know if you remember that one.
Yes. Yeah, I do remember that.
So maybe they're doing lots of allusions to 24.
Good. And we're very pumped up for the return of 24 at post-show recaps in just a couple of months. All right. So let's talk about this was a question that you had. What is the significance of the Valentine's Day release for House of Cards Season 2?
I mean, does it mean that there's going to be a lot more love in season 2?
Whoa.
The love storylines are the ones that you and I don't really like that much.
I hope not. I hope that's not what they're doing. Of like House of Cards season 2. Sit down and watch it with that special someone. It's gonna be. It's the rom-com season of House of Cards.
How I Met Your Vice President.
Yeah, How I Met Your Senator, something like
Yeah.
that. Now one of the things that I feel like it is pretty interesting though, in a lot of the marketing for House of Cards season 2, Frank's hands are like full of blood. And so he's like sitting in like Lincoln, and he's got like blood dripping down, and then there's like one where he has like his hand, like 2 fingers, and there's like all blood coming down his hand. What do you think is the significance of that? Is it just literal, like he has blood on his hands? Is that exactly what, like, or is there something more to read into that?
I think it's probably just that he's got blood on his hands, and
Oh,
maybe he'll have more blood on his hands because Pete Russo's death wasn't very bloody, so maybe he'll be stabbing somebody,
whoa, whoa.
stabbing the president to become. It all makes sense.
It would all make sense. All right. Question number 18. What was the deal with Pete's friend, and where do we think we're going to see more of that storyline of the? It was the, hey, what do you think? You're better than us because you're a congressman, and then Pete Russo was like, no, 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 I'm gonna do, like, hey man, we lost our jobs. You're gonna get us our jobs back. He's like, yeah, yeah, I'll get your jobs back. And then the whole thing with the water bill, and then that guy was really pissed throughout the rest of the season.
And I think that Christina approached him, and she did. She approached him in the last episode to take over Pete Russo's spot in the House of Representatives. I wonder if we'll see that guy as a member of Congress or campaigning as a member of Congress.
Yeah, again, that feels a little homelandy too, where they're gonna make Brody a congressman. So we sort of just have this guy who's like an average Joe, and he's like the one guy in Congress who's not a corrupt politician.
I mean, that guy. Maybe we'll see that guy become a corrupt politician.
Whoa.
We haven't seen that that transition really.
Okay. Well, that would be pretty good. That would be pretty good.
Did you think that guy was like Rousseau's brother? When I always thought they were brothers, especially like when they get in the fight. I was like, oh, maybe that's his brother.
No, they're just
and then it just turned out to be some guy.
He's just his bro, not his brother.
Oh, just bros.
Okay. Question number 19. What was Frank Underwood's greatest moment in season 1?
I think he had so many, and I wrote a couple of them down. I think that his showdown with Marty, the head of the labor union, was one of his best moments, where he reveals that he was the one behind throwing the brick through his window, and he gets Marty to punch him in the face and end the strike.
Did you buy that? I kind of felt like that. Would that ever really happen, that you get the guy to punch you in the face?
I mean, maybe that guy was kind of a hothead.
I guess so. I feel like that's strained credibility a little bit, but it was still a great scene.
It was a little bit of an easy way to wrap up the whole strike storyline, I felt like.
Yeah, the teacher strike.
Yeah, the teacher strike.
Okay.
And then I thought that the scene that I talked about earlier, when Francis kind of flips back to DC mode after he visited his college, I thought was really good.
Yeah.
I really didn't like that episode. That was probably my least favorite episode of the whole season, except that last scene.
Mm-hmm. Any other great Frank moments?
The other one that I had written down was when Claire has the fundraiser, and they won't let her have it inside the hotel because the hotel has union employees.
Yeah.
And so Frank hatches the plan to have the fundraiser outside. He's serving beer, they're eating ribs, and then he goes and takes ribs over to all the teachers who are on strike and gets them to eat the food on national TV.
Yeah.
I thought that was a really good one.
That was good. I really liked when he's talking to what was the guy from St. Louis that was vetting him?
Oh, Tusk.
Tusk. I liked the scene in the rib place where he sort of just like laid everything out to him and talked about how, like, hey, I'm not gonna play ball. Here's what's gonna happen. So that was a really great moment too.
Yeah. I thought that was really good. One of his lower moments was, probably his lowest was when he was on the debate on CNN.
Yeah, what happened there?
That was really out of character because he just lost his composure completely, and then was stuttering over his words, and then became a YouTube video.
Yeah, I felt like that they didn't really explain why that happened. It was just like all of a sudden this guy who was his superpower is that he's this great orator and he can manipulate anybody, and then all of a sudden just one day he lost it. and there was like no explanation. There was no like kryptonite or anything like that to explain why all of a sudden he just like completely had a meltdown.
Yeah, I definitely thought that there must have been kryptonite under that table.
It might have been kryptonite. And well, he might have had it left over from Superman Returns.
Yeah. Oh man, I'm sure he wants to forget that.
Kumar came in with some kryptonite, and they were waiting for Brandon Ruth to show up.
You're showing off all your Superman Returns trivia.
Sure. All right. And question number 20, our final question here on our season 1 recap. 20 questions on House of Cards season 1. What is your one bold prediction for House of Cards season 2?
I think either Claire or Zoe will die this season.
Whoa. Okay, you kind of stole mine. So what? You got to pick one.
All right, fine. I'll say Claire will die this season.
Okay, good. Because I'm gonna say that Zoe Barnes gets it by the end of House of Cards season 1, and hopefully, or season 2, and hopefully we get up to that point before somebody tells us about it on Twitter.
Yeah, I hope that we can avoid the spoilers stretching this out over 13 days.
Yeah,
I'm gonna do my best.
We'll do our best, and hopefully that people are going to want to take part in this, join in the fun of what we're gonna do. Watch one episode a night, a little bit of like a book club. So watch one episode a night, come back. If you miss an episode, watch 2 recaps the next day, okay? And then be with us live every day at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. There might be 1 or 2 days where we got to switch the time around to sort of make our schedules work, but that's the idea. 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific, starting on Friday, February 14th at postshowrecaps.com. All right, Zach, this was very fun.
Yeah, and if you need something to do, you're waiting for House of Cards to start, you can play House of Cards Against Humanity.
Yes,
which apparently they just released.
Tell us what that is for those of people who don't know what Cards Against Humanity is.
So Cards Against Humanity is a card game. It's like a party card game where somebody lays down a category and everybody lays down funny responses. And apparently Netflix just released like a House of Cards version of Cards Against Humanity. And I think you can download it and print it for free. So
yeah.
It's a fun party game for your Valentine's Day evening.
Very inappropriate party game.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. All right.
It's good to drink when you play it, unless you're Pete Russo.
Unless you're Pete Russo would kill it at House of Cards Against Humanity.
Yes, he would.
He's great at Jeopardy, and he's great at Cards Against Humanity.
And he's great at drinking way too much.
Sure. All right, great. So, Zach, thank you so much. We have a lot coming up here on the post-show recap, so we'll be back on Friday. Hope you can join us for House of Cards Live. And go ahead and subscribe to this YouTube channel. We'll create a playlist with all of the House of Cards Live videos, so you can go ahead and watch that as well. If you're watching Netflix on your computer, you should be watching this on your computer too. So please subscribe and never miss an episode. And we also appreciate it when you like and favorite the videos too, because it helps more people find the videos. All right. Thank you guys so much, and we'll talk to you again soon. Take care.